Do you believe in aliens? When we were in Marfa, Texas, we saw something we couldn't explain.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. I'm Jamin and Hilarie, and I'm here with my co-host and wife, Hilarie.
Hi.
We're in the middle of our Cities in the States season, and in this episode, we're trying to explain the unexplainable, the Marfa Lights.
That's right. Oh, this is going to be a good episode. I love Marfa. And if you guys missed last week's episode, you will want to go back and check it out. We talked about Salida, Colorado, and technically it might not technically be considered a city.
And if you're going by the book, today's episode is not actually about a city either. In fact, it's a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. Population is a little over 1,800 people. A hub of activity during World War II. There was a big military base there that then shut down after the war, and so was kind of abandoned, but a really cool town that then was discovered by a lot of artistic people. Some money from even outside of Texas, like New York City, got put in there. So now there's art galleries, and it makes it just this really kind of interesting, kitschy, cool place in the middle of nowhere, Texas.
Yeah, it's so distinctive. I really love it. And in my mind, it's all art. Everything about this place is artistic. The buildings themselves have been remodeled in really artistic ways. The food is artistic. Some of the buildings are intentionally made to look really run down on the outside. So you kind of drive through and you think you're just looking at a bunch of shacks. Yeah. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And then on the inside, they're remodeled and they're really cool, really posh in some instances. And anyway, some of them have murals on the side of the building. It's pretty interesting. It's a very photogenic place to be.
Yeah, really cool place. But before we jump in, do take a minute to subscribe to the Travel FOMO podcast from wherever you're listening. That way you get those notifications when every episode comes out.
Yeah, so Jamin, set the scene for us. Tell us about Marfa, Texas.
So we had heard about Marfa from some people. Marfa is like one of those things that if you live in Texas, you kind of hear about Marfa, and it's like whispered, like there's a Prada store there and like this really cool hotel, but no one like really knows where it is, like what it is or where it is. It's kind of like a speakeasy that is a town. So you gotta like go there to get there. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It is very much like that, isn't it? It's very much the kind of place where you have to go with the intent of going there, or else there's no reason you'd go there. No. It's way out there in the middle of nowhere. And it is also, like you were saying, it's very much, you hear about it from a friend of a friend, you know somebody who may have been there, and generally when people say it, they go, oh, yeah. You hear everyone go, oh, Marfa, yeah. But nobody's really been.
Right. Yeah. So it's that thing that like everyone knows about. Like, oh, yeah, it's out there, but no one's ever been there themselves.
Yes. And we drove from Dallas. So you kind of have to drive out into the middle of nowhere. So we ended up in Midland, Texas for lunch. And I had been through Midland, but didn't really remember much about it. We were looking for a place to eat, and we ended up finding this really great barbecue spot downtown. And we just loved it. It was so great.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it was so good. It was called Johnny's Barbecue.
Yes.
Is in downtown Midland. So if you are driving through the middle of nowhere in Texas and you hit up Midland, you should try out Johnny's Barbecue. There's some good food out there for sure. And everything was good. There was the brisket, the sausage, the turkey, the chopped barbecue, the creamed corn, the toast. Like, they were friendly, good management. It was well done.
Well, being a Texan, when you go to a new barbecue spot, you are obligated by state law to try a little of everything that there is, which is what we did.
Yeah, every time we ever eat barbecue.
Anytime that you go anywhere new that there's a barbecue place, like you have to try it all because it's important to know what's good and what's not. And everything there was good. So if it's barbecue and you like it, go to Johnny's Downtown Midland and they'll hook you up. And we roll into town and we finally get there after driving and driving and driving. You're in the middle of nowhere and you finally get there and
To Marfa.
To Marfa.
Yes.
Yeah, to Marfa. And we roll in and we found like the place where we were going to stay, which was the Thunderbird Motel. And it was super cool. It kind of a retro motel, like all the doors are on the outside and you kind of park around it. It's a U-shaped building with like basically a courtyard and pool kind of in the middle, but it was super retro but really cool, like definitely a vibey kind of place. A lot of like mesquite and scrub bushes like in the courtyard, which was cool. They had actually several fire pits.
Oh yeah, that was
and like
nice.
little areas where you could sit,
and the wood was provided, and
yeah, like they had like little starter kits and everything there, so you could just kind of chill and have a little fire, which was really cool, especially at night. Like it gets a little cool and
surprisingly cool for that far
yeah,
south.
I was a little surprised too at how cool the temperature got. We went in late October, so it was actually Halloween.
It was.
When we were there, yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Fun.
Yeah, so it was a little sterile in that like every room, well, I say every room. I only saw our room, so
Right.
I assume they didn't give us the one room that's like this, but it was like a concrete square.
Yeah, very
basically.
industrial.
Very industrial. No art on the walls. No real furniture other than the bed. No rugs on the floor.
Yeah.
So very, very industrial. That's a good word for it. And
It was like a concrete box, which was really interesting too because they charged us a $50 non-refundable deposit because we brought our dog, and I was like, because she might pee on your concrete floor, like what on earth could she possibly do to this concrete box?
Right. Maggie cost us 50 extra bucks to stay, and I was kind of the same way. I was like, well, even if which she doesn't shed, but even if she was a dog that sheds like crazy, you're gonna sweep the floor anyway.
Right.
There's no rugs. There's nothing to be ruined by a dog running around in here. So I didn't really get that either. But that like it was so strange, and like all of the concrete made for a super weird like sleeping experience.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because the air conditioner, it's not like heat and air, like it's not central heat and air, it's basically a window unit.
Yeah.
And so the air conditioner would kick on and the fan would blow and it sounded like an industrial strength fan, and so it would like blow and blow and blow and just like echo through the room, and then it would shut off and it would be completely totally dead silent.
Yeah, because you're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
You can't hear a thing. It's like really, really quiet.
Yeah. And so like air conditioner kicks on and then boom, dead quiet. And then a train comes by and then boom, dead quiet.
Yep.
At one point, like Maggie stands up on the bed and barks in like the concrete room. Everything's concrete. There's nothing to absorb sound. So everything just is magnified and echoed in this little box that you're in.
She like barked into a microphone. Oh.
Yeah. And then like back to dead quiet. So all night long you're like, oh, crazy sound, and then like quiet, just over and over and over again all night long. There's a lot of options actually to stay there. Airbnbs, El Cosmico is like a really cool place that
yes, I still want to stay there.
And it has like all the options for you to stay. It's an RV park, so if you have an RV, you can stay there. I think they have tent camping sites as well.
Yeah.
You can also, they have like permanent RVs there on location that you can rent out. They have teepees that you can rent. A lot of really cool stuff. We actually tried to get, yurts. We tried to get a teepee. The whole place was booked the weekend that we went. There was a special event, and so like we couldn't get in. I really wanted to do a teepee while we were there, but it just didn't work out. But So definitely hit that place up.
And some of those have like fire pits inside them. I think it might be the yurts or the teepees. They have a fire pit, and then it's open air right above the fire pit. So it just kind of like all of the smoke just kind of goes up through that center hole. And you basically have a centerpiece as like a fire pit in the middle of your room, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really cool. And that just the place in general looks like a lot of fun. You can tell like they bring out food trucks and just have a good time out there, and
Well,
super
and it's
laid
like
back.
it's such a big like compound, and it just looks like a great place to go, especially if you have a group that you're going with, and everybody can kind of hit their deal. Like, it would be a lot of fun to be there with a little group of people. But a bunch of other there's an Airstream RV resort there.
Yeah.
With a bunch of Airstreams that you can rent out,
New
kind of like an
Airstreams.
Airbnb. Yeah, like
Nice
they're
Airstreams.
super nice. Hotel St. George, like kind of close to downtown, looks posh, really new. The Lincoln, Hotel Paisano, I think is probably the coolest place. I haven't been there, but you'd been before and stayed there.
Oh my goodness. I love that place. And we tried to get in there because
Yeah.
we wanted to stay there. I wanted you so badly to get to stay there with me. I can't, and is it Hotel Pasano or Hotel Pasiano? I don't
think
know.
I think it's Paciano, but I think I always say it wrong because I fall on like the Italian Paisano, but I think this is more the Spanish Paciano.
Oh, yes, I'm more Spanish, so I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
kidding.
what it is.
So the reason we couldn't stay there this time is because it was closed due to a wedding. Somebody basically bought the whole hotel out,
Yes, yeah.
which would be a dream wedding,
That's
I
pretty
must
cool.
say. It's really cool. So I stayed there back in March of 2020, and it was right after the whole world was shutting down due to COVID. So kind of a unique experience. The whole town of Marfa was just, it really felt like a ghost town, even more so than this tiny town usually feels. The hotel itself is very old Hollywood. And actually, they did used to have stars from Hollywood come and film out in this part of Texas, and they used to stay in that hotel. And so famous people like James Dean stayed there, which is kind of just fun. It's pretty cool. They got pictures too of these famous people there, and it's also haunted. Yay!
Oh, which you love.
We know that I love that. And so, and of course I was staying by myself. I had Maggie with me, but I was a little creeped out because that's how I roll. And I'll never forget arriving to the hotel that night. And, it's really late at that point. It's like 11 something at night. And I walk past, there's this courtyard area. Whenever you go up to the front, you basically have to walk through this courtyard area and this fountain that's all lit up at night. And I entered into the lobby, and it's all very Art Deco, Spanish style. All the floors are tile. Some of the walls are tile. Like, it's very ornate as well. And there was nobody at the front desk, just like you imagine in an old haunted hotel. And I rang the bell on the counter. I'm not even kidding. There was a silver bell, and I ding. I rang the little bell, and this really eccentric, that's the best word to describe him, this old man comes out, and he walks out real slowly, and he writes down my name in this book.
And you didn't find out till the next day that there's not an old man that works there.
Oh, it was so crazy. No, I'm just kidding. That would be awesome. God, that's a better story. Let's tell that story. But yeah, no, he literally opens up this massive book, and he writes my name down in the ledger and writes down my room number and the date. And he just kind of documents, this is the record. And then he hands me this key. It is an actual key. And I've got a photo of it still because I thought it was so cool. I'll have to put that on social media. And he was really a dog lover. So as soon as I brought in Maggie, he he just thought she was awesome. And so he was giving her treats and trying to get her to jump up on the counter and stuff. And It was so cute. So then he points me to the room, and I go up these stairs to this room, and it was just the coolest. The room itself was so cool because I got one that had like these French doors that open up to this patio, and the patio walls were like these cement walls that were really high, so you couldn't see over them, and it had this great, it was just really charming, and it had a fire pit, not a fire pit, a fireplace. That was built into these cement walls and
cool.
stuff. It was really, really cool. I highly recommend it. I basically, they have like the firewood and everything you need. And so I lit the fire and I let it burn. I let it burn all night. It was amazing. And I opened up those French doors and I just like let the cold air come in, and the whole room filled up with smoke. And I didn't even care. I was like, this is amazing. This is so great. This campfire smell. But the hotel itself, it's so charming. I had to walk around it that night, even though it was like so late. I had to go check it out because the hotel name is like, it's all like in lights.
It's
and
really cool. Yeah.
it's just really, really well done. And there's a charming little shop inside the hotel where you can buy different little things. I think there's a couple different shops. There's clothes you can buy, but then there's also just like really unique gifts that you can get for people. And it's really dog friendly. And I loved that. The rooms are old enough that they don't really care too much. And so I was able to bring Maggie. And the enclosed patio was just, by far, like, I wish I could have stayed longer. It was awesome.
Yeah, we went by and went in the shops when we were there, but
Yeah.
I was really bummed that we couldn't get in.
Yeah.
That stinking wedding that was going on that weekend.
I know, we should have crashed that wedding.
We should have, actually. We should have just rolled with them. And, well, we should have for everything, really, because when it came to like trying to get a place to eat,
Ugh.
like we're driving into town and I'm calling around trying to make reservations to find us a place to stay or to eat, and a couple of the places that I called were like, no, we're closed for a private event for the weekend.
Yeah. Like whole place is shut down, just like the hotel was.
So several of the places we wanted to eat were like, no, private event for the weekend. So I don't know who was getting married there.
They must have been important.
Yeah, they must have been super important. And we definitely should have crashed the wedding. I think if you're that big a wedding that you're like shutting down hotels and you're shutting down restaurants and stuff, that there's a ton of guests, and we could have just like slipped in and we're like, oh yeah, we're Uncle Fred.
I don't think we brought the right attire, because we did see some people headed to that wedding and they were pretty fancy.
They were pretty fancy. We weren't ready for that.
Yeah, no, that was the real bummer, because there were so many places that we wanted to check out in terms of like food and dinner and
drinks.
Like
I know we tried to get into Jet's Grill, which is part of the hotel, Passiano, and the Sentinel was another one that we wanted to get in, and it was closed. Convenience West was like a barbecue spot, and it was only open for like certain hours, and so we kind of missed our window there.
Yeah, it's a kind of a tricky place to get meals.
Well, it is so small that when an event like that closes down several places, then all of a sudden like you're really limited.
Yeah.
So you're kind of limited to begin with, and then for us that weekend it became like really scarce to like try to find spots. But we went to the Water Stop for dinner. And it, like really cool vibes.
Yeah.
Like, cocktails were good. Food was fine. Like nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't anything to write home about. But it was like definitely a cool place. Like very vibey.
Yeah. And great weather too. I will say, like, anytime I've been there, only been there twice to Marfa, but the weather's been great.
I imagine it gets crazy hot during the middle of the summer, just from where it is.
Noted.
But other than that, and I mean, if you're going in the middle of the summer, you're going to kind of expect that.
Yeah.
So, and those West Texas towns in the middle of summer, it's going to be hot, and you just kind of, it's that deserty kind of feel. So you just sort of embrace it, and it's fine.
And those hotels have those cool pools and stuff like that. So there's still like fun things to do. I've seen lots of, people hanging out by the pools and the Instagram photos, and like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a bad time of year to go
Yeah.
to Marfa. So yeah, it would be pretty cool. And but we were there Halloween.
We were, oh my goodness, and I had forgotten. So we were there Halloween night. We ended up at Planet Marfa, and we had some drinks and kind of like took part in their Halloween festivities, which is so funny because we didn't know, we just like, it was one of the first times ever that since you've known me that I haven't actually celebrated Halloween because I freaking love it.
When we were packing, I had just assumed that you'd forgotten that it was Halloween, and that's why costumes weren't. That's why there wasn't a box of costumes getting packed, and I just didn't mention it.
Oh my goodness, I love Halloween. So I really got a kick out of being at Planet Marfa because even though we weren't dressed up, I still got to like experience Halloween. This whole place was so eccentric, and there were no generational boundaries. It was just this melting pot of people, all different ages, all different types. Then they kind of like, they would play music. They would like play Latino, Hispanic music, and then the very next song would be like, it would just, or country music, and then it would be like R&B, and then it'd be like, I mean, it was just this crazy mishmash of stuff.
Well, the whole place, the whole experience, I feel like was that way because the place to begin with, it's like a circular bar in the very middle.
Yeah.
And there's an old school bus is one part of it where there's a seating section.
There's a teepee and this underground spot where like this teepee where the ground underneath it is dug out. So you go underground as you're going inside a teepee, if you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this lounge area down there. There was a bus. You go to the bar. The bar is a tiki hut. And then it's got a winding staircase that takes you up above it where you can kind of hang out on a second level of the tiki hut.
Yeah, there's like a little balcony up there.
Yeah.
And like a dance floor. And so like the place itself is sort of a mishmash.
And it's a mishmash of buildings too. Like you said, there's a bus, but then there's like a room off on one side with these French doors that close, but you could also open them up to the courtyard area. And it's like all these different rooms kind of come together to open up to this courtyard. It was so odd, but it was really fun. And ping pong tables, dance floor in the middle of everything. It was, and of course it was Halloween, so it almost looked like this giant spider web that everyone's like dancing inside. It was weird. And then there was this costume contest that was cracking me up because it was hosted by this old man, and he had this like really white beard and a bandana or something like that.
That's the thing. I spent the whole night trying to decipher whether or not he was in costume.
I know.
Or if that was just like his look.
I know. I couldn't tell either.
I would 100% believe either one.
Either one. Yeah. I mean, and he's basically like the DJ, the costume contest host. He's like also maybe the owner of the bar.
He looked like he could be Willie Nelson's dad.
Yeah. It's so crazy. And he had the best time, and it was so fun. You could tell like it was really refreshing too because people just didn't care. You could just tell people didn't care.
Yeah.
And there wasn't as much like just like worrying about like what you look like and who you're talking to or anything like that. It's like people just everybody's friends with everybody. And
a crazy mix of people. And it definitely wasn't there's nobody there that could feel like they didn't belong.
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of people.
Yeah.
So like it's either no one belonged or everyone belongs.
Yeah, exactly.
It was that kind of a place. It was pretty cool.
It was cool. And I would say that probably almost 100% of everybody except for us they were local.
I think you're right. Yeah.
It really, really felt like that. Yeah.
I think everyone else was at that wedding.
Yeah.
Like all the other out of towners were at the wedding.
I really do.
Just us.
Yeah, exactly. I really want to tell you about this great new thing that I found. Every time I bring it on a trip, I am so glad that I did. It saves me money, it makes life easier, and I'm better looking because of it. The only problem is I haven't found it yet. So if your product can make our lives better, let's talk, because we want to know and we want to share. Okay, so we still have 2 huge pieces of our story that we need to tell people about. So we've got to get to this. Okay.
So which one are you going to tell first?
So first we're going to talk about Prada Marfa.
Okay.
And then we're going to let you guys in on the Marfa Lights, which is ultimately what a lot of people think of when they think of Marfa.
Yeah.
So, but first, Prada Marfa. Okay, so a lot of people go out to this Prada store that exists outside of Marfa, and it's well known for people taking amazing photos there. It's kind of crazy because it's a Prada store literally out in the middle of the desert, and so that's fun. It's actually, you'd be surprised how heavily trafficked it is. So if you are headed out there and you want to get a good photo, you should probably be prepared to be patient because people drive by a lot. People will park right in front of it. And so in terms of really getting photos, you kind of have to like be patient and take your time. But I would say try early in the morning, actually, if it were me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of surprised about that because you do see like all the Instagram and stuff. Like it's everyone out there, like Prada Marfa, middle of nowhere. I'm the only person out here, except there's like 10 people waiting in line to be the only person
take a photo.
out there.
I know.
Yeah.
So funny. And it's what surprised me too is it's not really a store. It's kind of like a storefront. So like a window front store, like
right.
where you can kind of, yeah.
I mean,
it's not really open anytime I've been there.
No, like it's clearly just, yeah, like you said, a window front. Like they have product in there, and I'm sure that they come out and like switch product out every once in a while. But you're not going there to buy anything. You're not going inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do have a fence that goes around it, and people bring locks and they put a lock on the fence and stuff.
Yes.
So if you're swinging by, you might want to like put a lock up.
Leave your lock there.
Yeah. But so the real story though lies in how far away Prada Marfa is from Marfa.
Yes.
It's crazy. That's the real story. Okay, so it's really closer. They should call it Prada Valentine because it's close to Valentine, Texas.
Well, that's the thing is like we left Marfa and we had to drive through another town to get to Prada Marfa.
Yeah. And this other town was like a hole in the wall, like really small. And we're driving and I start realizing that like, oh, this is like a lot further away than I realized because last time I'd driven through, I was on my way to Phoenix. So it's like, it seems close in the grand scheme of how long I'm going to drive that day.
Right.
But in this instance, it was like pretty far. And then we keep driving. I'm like, wow. And then we get to Valentine and I'm like, okay, like we're still not there yet. It's still going to be a while. So we get there and then we have to get back. And you're in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the desert, mind you, in the middle of nowhere. And we're in the FJ Cruiser and it guzzles gas and we're about out of it.
Yeah. So when we left Marfa, I was thinking like, oh, it's probably like a 10, 15 minute drive out to this place and then back. We'll be fine. And then as we drive out, I'm like, okay, this is further than I realized. Like, we're starting to get low on gas. But there are signs for this other town called Valentine. I'm sure we'll get to the store before we get to Valentine. Mm-hmm. And even if we don't, we'll stop and get gas in Valentine. Mm-hmm. Well, we have to go through Valentine to get to Prada Marfa. And there's no gas stations in Valentine.
Ghost town. Yeah.
Yeah. So driving back was very, very stressful.
You could hear a pin drop like while we were driving. Like both of us were literally holding our breath. And we started having conversations about like, okay, so we run a lot now. And I've run a marathon. And so literally once we got down to 26 miles, I was like, okay, I can run 26 miles. Though I have not been training for a marathon, so that's not really true. But I literally was like, okay. And then it got down to like 13 miles. And I was like, okay, we both run a half marathon. Either one of us could do it. If we needed to get back to Marfa and get gas, we could do that. Like, we were literally thinking of, how are we going to do this?
I mean, I don't know how we made it back.
I don't either.
Because, like, the gas light came on, and I was like, there's no way that we're making it back. And we roll into the gas station somehow back at Marfa, and I've never been so glad to see a gas station and just so relieved.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if you were relieved or pissed. You were pretty mad. Or, well, no, I don't think you were actually really mad. I think you were just like real serious about like this could be bad.
Well, I was really concerned because it was the three of us. Like, it's a highway in the middle of West Texas. Like, there's just a lot that could happen.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hello.
Yeah. To the strangers or like whatever.
Ugh.
That, yeah, all of that, like all of those kinds of horror movies are like coming into my mind. It's the desert, and so I'm thinking, like, if we run out of gas, I'm gonna have to pull over the side of the road and like leave you and Maggie
Yeah.
in the FJ while I walk to get gas. And like, who, how does that work? Like, what's going on? And like, there's no real like cell phone reception out there. So I'm thinking I have to leave you guys out there where you don't even have cell phone reception.
Gosh, that's true.
And all of that. So it was just very stressful, and I was very glad to be back. And now we'll never go on any excursions with like less than a full tank of gas ever again.
Yeah, we were literally thinking of all the things, like, we were totally prepared for, okay, we're about to run out of gas and here's what's going to happen. Because we were even talking about how, okay, we brought all our camping gear because after Marfa, we were going to go to Big Bend.
Right. Yeah.
And so we had an ice chest, we had water.
Fortunately, we did. Yeah.
We had a tent. We literally could have survived on the side of the road if we needed to. So we were talking about like that because we absolutely planned to run out of gas. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, I was almost sure. I was even to the point of like, well, I need to make sure that I don't like damage the engine. We're going to run out of gas anyway, so I would rather stop.
Right.
Stop at 5 miles rather than at 3 and like just walk the rest of the way. But
Yeah.
somehow
We made it.
we made it. We coasted in.
And an
on fumes.
interesting point about the story is that to differentiate how different our two personalities are, is that in my vehicle, I know how low I can go on gas because I test it every week.
Yeah.
Literally to the point that you're like, no, 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 no. Like holding my breath in Dallas traffic. And you had never at any point tested, because that's just not like something you would do. Like, no, you shouldn't do that, and I believe you shouldn't do that to your vehicle. But that we didn't know how far the FJ could go because that's not what you do.
We never push those limits
Like I insist
unnecessarily.
on doing. Exactly. Okay, so that's on the west side of Marfa, and on the east side of Marfa is something that's a really big deal too, which is the Marfa Lights.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
So if you've been listening, you know how into like the paranormal that Hilarie is. So
I guess so, huh?
yeah. So there is a phenomenon
A phenomenon.
in Marfa, just outside of town, called the Marfa Lights. And it's these lights that appear in the sky, and not all the time, kind of sporadically, unpredictably, and people aren't sure what they are. Like, there's There's no real explanation for it. Some people want to say that it's cars off in the distance and things like that, but the first time that they were reported ever seen was in the 1800s by a cowboy. So there's no cars, there's no planes, there's no satellites,
Yeah.
any of that back then. And
That's so fascinating to
right,
me.
and they've been seen, and that's just the first time that they were reported. And even then, it was such a prevalent thing that this cowboy who is riding out there, riding into town, sees these lights, asks about them. The next day, they go out to see, like, oh, are they campfires that were out there? Couldn't find anything. So that's the first known investigation into the Marfa Lights that there's been. Subsequently, there have been researchers from universities, things like that, all kinds of people. There's all kinds of speculations as to what it is, if it's ghosts or aliens or some kind of natural phenomenon or cars or anything like that. So all kinds of theories, which of course you wanted to get up super early to go see the Marfa Lights. And there's actually a rest stop there, like a nice rest stop with restrooms and like an observation area from where people most often see them. And I am a little more skeptical and not as into the paranormal as you. So I was kind of like, I don't know that I want to get up.
Early,
like,
right? Like we were getting up early.
What do we get up at, like 4?
Yeah, maybe.
I think it was like 4 o'clock because you wanted to be out there by like 4:30 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty early.
So I was like, okay, Hillary wants to do this, so we're gonna go out. So
It was so sweet when you got. I totally expected that I was just gonna wake up, make myself some coffee, and I was just gonna go do it. And you got out of bed, and I was like, "Wow, that is so nice." I know he doesn't want to do this with me.
well, like we were gonna go do it. We're gonna go, and I was super skeptical. I was 1,000% of the mindset that I'm gonna bundle up. I'm going to go out here. We're going to sit in the dark for like an hour. And then, like, once you're bored with sitting in the dark,
In the cold.
I'm going to convince you to, like, buy me a donut on the way back to the hotel so that I can sleep some more.
Oh, you never did get a donut.
No, I didn't get a donut. But we got there and we got on the observation area, and it was just us out there.
Yeah.
Now there's a big like rest stop there, so there were a few people like boondocking there, a few like van lifers and stuff like that, but we're the only ones out there on the observation area. And we're looking out and we see there off in the distance there is a place where you can see a highway and you can see cars every once in a while, but it's pretty obvious what they are. Then we notice a green light that would like flicker on and off and go from like green to red, and then it would begin to move.
It would dart around. It would hop around on
Right.
us.
It would like kind of hop around and move, but the movements were never consistent. Like you see when a satellite or a plane goes by and you see them like move and constantly be on a trajectory. But this would move and then would move back and it would stay in place and then would kind of go away and then it would come back. And keep in mind, I was completely and totally sure that we would see nothing. But I for sure saw these lights and I don't know what they are.
I love hearing that.
But you
Yeah, it was crazy.
and you were so excited.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I got a little worried when I realized that, like, you were like, oh my gosh, look at that. Like, look at that. And the thing that was really crazy is whenever you said, okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing and you tell me if this is what you're seeing too.
Yeah.
And you started describing the light you were looking at, and I was like, yep. Oh my gosh, yeah, it just went to the right, like, real fast. And then it just did this real fast, and it just dipped down, and...
Right, because it's so far away, and it's really hard to see that you're like, okay, maybe I'm just staring at this one direction too long.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's not actually doing what I'm saying. But we took turns. Like I would be like, okay, and now it just moved to the right.
Yeah.
Or now it just moved down.
Mm-hmm.
And you would say, yep. And then you would go, okay, I'm going to watch it and I'm going to tell you, and you would see it do those things.
And I tried to record it on the camera, which is like very low quality. Obviously, this is dark and all kinds of stuff. But you can just hear in our voices. I'm going to have to put it on Instagram too. I'm going to have to share it. You can hear in our voices that we're like, did you just see that? Like, it was just like, oh my gosh. Like, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was. And you can look into it. A lot of people have had a lot more intense experiences than what we had. But it was something that I really don't know what it was. So what do you think it was?
Well, okay, so let me just also preface this with there are a lot of other stories that are really different than ours.
So this is the part where you try to convince me you're not crazy for what you're about to say that you think it is.
No, this is where I let people make up their own decisions based on more information.
Oh, okay.
There is a podcast out there, and it's called There's Something Out There. It's from Marfa Public Radio, and there is an episode on the Marfa Light. And there's this episode where they, these guys, Carlos and Drew, they talk about this road trip that they took, and they hit Marfa, they hit Valentine, Texas, where we'd been, and they've got this experience that is just totally insane. It's more... They talk more about this light coming up right next to their vehicle, and it's pretty different than our experience, right? Because we look out and we kind of saw that basic experience that most people did, but there people have had some really crazy experiences. I highly recommend that episode. It's really good. And when we were looking out at all the lights, I say all the lights because there are different lights out there. Mm-hmm. And people talk about, it's just cars on a road out there. Well, we can see that road and we can see those cars coming.
We definitely saw the cars on the road and can identify those.
Yeah. And that's it was pretty obvious that that's not what this is.
Right.
And why would car lights be green and then red and then all these different colors? And so that just felt like that's just not it. So what I think... Mm-hmm. What I think it's a UFO. It's pretty unidentified in my mind. So I'm gonna say it's a UFO, and I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable not being able to explain everything in this world, and so that's where do you land, Mr. Houghton, Mr. Hogerton?
Well, I don't think that it's a UFO.
So you think you can explain it?
No, I don't think that I can explain it. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you what it's not. And I don't think it's a UFO.
Okay.
I think that there is some kind of gases being leaked out there, or something explainable that we just don't have an explanation for yet that's causing the Marfa Lights. I don't think that there's an alien ship that comes to that place regularly it just seems like if I was an alien and I was coming to Earth, there are places that maybe you get tired of coming to the middle of West Texas to just sit in a certain spot and move around.
Yeah.
Maybe for hundreds of years.
Maybe.
But we can't explain it. We don't know what it is. You should go to Marfa and check it out. You should see for yourself. It was kind of eerie, mm-hmm. because I did expect to see nothing, and I 100% expected you to see something, and for me to go what do you no, there's nothing.
And I expected you to debunk everything, and you couldn't technically do that.
Not yet.
I welcome the opportunity. I welcome it. Oh man, it was a lot of fun though. It actually, it was so fun. I couldn't believe we both had such a good time that early in the morning. Like, it was just like, wow, this is like, how crazy is
Yeah,
this? It's
it
kind of
was a
fun.
lot of fun. A great way to start that day. Like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we were only there for about 24 hours
Yeah, pretty fast.
before we left. But that was about right for us. Like we got to see a lot of it, do a lot of the stuff. A few things that we wished had been opened, but I think even if they had, we would have got to do those things. And so like a quick weekend there is like really awesome.
Yeah.
From there, we made our way to Big Bend, and we went in the national park and did that, which is only a few hours away from Marfa. So we'll save the Big Bend part of that
Yeah.
trip for another time. But it was great, like
Yeah.
a really cool place.
Yeah, Marfa, oh my gosh, it's a photographer's dream. So if you love taking photos, you are going to want to make the trek out there. It'll be worth it. And you can see some of our photos and videos that we captured, including the Marfa Lights, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We're going to put it out there. And then, of course, if you like today's episode, please just real quickly rate and review the podcast, subscribe to Travel FOMO from wherever you're listening, and then you can learn a little bit more about us at travelfomopodcast.com.
That's right. And next week, be sure to come back because we are going to take you back to Colorado to a winter wonderland.
Sweater weather. We're going to talk about sweater weather. It's great. Yeah, and both of the times that we went to Pagosa Springs, it was Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. Next episode is Pagosa Springs, and we've had like little white Christmases there, which is so fun. It's a holiday extravaganza place to be, and it's really gonna make you guys start wanting to plan a Christmas vacation
For sure.
right now. So
Perfect place.
and you
for
should start doing
Christmas.
that because life is short.
Wander well.